Welcome back to the Worldliness Podcast, everyone. Today I'm going to be doing another book review on The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway. Here it is right here. Oh, if you guys are watching, here's the cover of the book. If you're listening, you'll have to go to YouTube. We're going to be reviewing The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway. I'm going to talk about what the book is actually about, and then I'll talk about how I discovered the book. I'll give my thoughts, and I'll talk about who I think would actually like the book. Before we get into the podcast, I want to shout out Ali Abdal because he uses Notion too. Notion is the app that I use to plan out the podcast episodes. So for most of the episodes, I write a page of notes, sometimes more. And for this podcast, instead of doing a traditional podcast scripting, I did a book review. And I'm just going to read off of that. So anyways, this is Ali Abdal's template. He's a sort of productivity YouTuber. He also has done like videos on how you can read more books in a year and how to just read more and how to remember more of what you read. And he has a fiction and nonfiction template on his Notion page, so you can download it and use his template to take notes on a book that you're currently reading. So yeah, I'll leave a link to his channel in the description. All right, so let's get started. What is The Old Man and the Sea actually about? The story takes place in Cuba. An old fisherman named Santiago has been unsuccessful for 84 days in his attempts to catch a fish at sea. He has a young apprentice, Manolin, who wants to set sail with Santiago, who's the old man, on his 85th day of fishing, but Santiago declines the help because he sees himself as unlucky. So Santiago doesn't let the boy come along with him because the boy is already a part of a successful fishing crew, and Santiago sees himself as unlucky. So he wants the boy to come home to his family with fish. The boy, on the other hand, is Manolin, although upset that he will not be joining the old man at sea, decides to help the old man prepare for his trip in as many ways as he can. When the 85th day arrives, Santiago sets out to catch a great fish, and initially he doesn't go too far out past the rest of the fishing crews who are closer to the shore. He turns back and decides that he'll have to go to greater lengths if he is to catch a great fish, so he sails out even farther. As he is moving along the sea, he catches a few smaller fish, which he saves to relieve his hunger, as he is determined to stay out until he catches what he wants. So I think, if I remember correctly, he catches a few tuna fish. And what he does is he keeps, I think, 2 under the bench of his skiff, which is just like a small fishing boat. And he saves them because, he's thinking in advance. Suddenly, he feels one of his 6 lines tighten, and he knows that he has caught a large fish because of its ability to steadily pull the skiff. So imagine a small fishing boat, and on each side there are 3 lines that are cast out into sea. So he has 6, 3 on each side, 3 lines on each side. The old man begins to So the old man begins to personify the fish, and this is where the book gets really, really interesting. So he catches a fish on the first day out there, and it starts to pull him out to sea. The fish doesn't die immediately. It's pulling him. It's hooked, but it's pulling him out away from the coast of Cuba. And so he begins to personify the fish. He feels a brotherly connection to the fish and wishes he didn't have to kill it. His guilt is lessened in the moments where he is able to acknowledge his great respect for the fish. Santiago mentions the following: "Never have I had such a strong fish, nor one who acted so strangely. Perhaps he is too wise to jump. He could ruin me by jumping or by a wild rush. But perhaps he has been hooked many times before, and he knows that this is how he should make his fight. He cannot know that it is only one man against him, nor that it is an old man. But what a great fish he is, and what he will bring in the market if the flesh is good. He took the bait like a male, and he pulls like a male, and his fight has no panic in it. I wonder if he has any plans or if he is just as desperate as I am." The old man spends the rest of the day holding the line, and the fish pulls the skiff out to sea throughout the night. So he sets out. He goes far out past the coast of Cuba, catches the fish, and the fish pulls Santiago, the old man, through the night. Next day. So the next day arrives, and Santiago is a little beaten up and sore from sleeping in his skiff. At this point, Santiago still hasn't seen the fish since it has been underwater the entire time it has been hooked. He wishes that Manolin was with him so he could have a companion but also a helping hand. During the second day, the old man's connection with the fish deepens. He admires the great strength of the fish because of its capacity to be hooked and persist away from the coast of Cuba. Santiago says, "I wish I could feed the fish. He is my brother, but I must kill him and keep strong to do it." Here we see the old man's wisdom through his great reverence for the natural world. Throughout the day, he has conversations with himself and with other animals, such as the birds that fly above his skiff. He remains level-headed by having these conversations and by admiring his brother, or the marlin. So at this point, he doesn't know it's a marlin. He just knows it's a big fish. But as we find out, it's a marlin or a swordfish. He has bouts of excitement because he suspects the fish is giant, and bouts of uncertainty because he is being pulled far away from the shore. However, he is able to confide in the sea, sky, stars, and animals to come back to a state of trust in his mission. Essentially, nature becomes his primary companion. Another night passes without seeing the fish. The old man gets as much rest as possible as he is slowly becoming more fatigued. So, day 2, another day, the marlin is pulling the old man farther and farther away from the coast of Cuba. He still doesn't know how big the fish is. He suspects that it's big because it's been pulling him for two days at this point, and it's been hooked the entire time, but he still hasn't seen it. It's been underwater. So the third day arrives. When the next morning arrives, it's the third day that the old man has been at sea, and on this day, the fish finally propels itself out of the sea. As the great fish lunges into the air, the old man is able to see what he's after. The fish is a giant marlin. Seeing the marlin excites Santiago and gives him the energy he needs to finish off the kill. He plunges his harpoon into the side of the fish and kills it before he can truly embrace what happened. So, it's the third day. I think this happened early in the morning. That's the sense I got from reading the book. He wakes up on the third day. He's very tired at this point. He's bleeding because at certain points on the first and second day, the marlin would make like really sharp turns, or would just change speeds, and these are just regular. They sort of sound like weak fishing lines, and so the old man is having to hold these with his hands, and every time the fish jerks, it cuts his hand, and so he's really beaten up at this point. He's had nothing to eat except raw tuna. He caught a dolphin on the second day, I think towards the end of the day. He ate some of the dolphin, but he's had nothing to eat except raw food and nothing to drink. He kills the fish, or he sees the fish, just gives him energy, and then he kills it. This is where the book gets gets tragic for a minute. So he kills the marlin with his harpoon, and the blood goes into the water, and sharks pick up the scent of the marlin. So one shark approaches, and the old man harpoons the shark once it gets close enough to the skiff, but he loses the harpoon in the process. More sharks approach the skiff after the death of the first shark, and the old man is rendered defenseless due to the loss of his harpoon and pocket knife. He had a pocket knife, and I think he tied it to... I can't remember. He tied his knife to just a wooden stick or something he had in the boat, and he killed another shark with it, and he was rendered defenseless after that because now he doesn't have his harpoon or his pocket knife. The sharks rip the marlin apart until nothing is left but its skeleton. Devastated, the old man slowly makes it back to the shore of Cuba by nightfall. He returns to his humble shack where he will be greeted by Manolin in the morning. Manolin is his young apprentice again. So that's sort of the plot of the book. And I want to talk about how I discovered it. So I was actually just at Barnes & Noble, and I was looking for a good fiction book to read. And, obviously I had heard of Ernest Hemingway, so I just was looking through a few of his books. I saw this, The Old Man and the Sea. I think I read like a page or two, and then I read 40 pages before buying it, and then I bought it and finished it the next day. So this book was incredibly good, and I'll talk more about that at the end when I talk about who I think should read the book, because it was like, yeah, it was really gripping. So that's how I found it. I just stumbled across it at Barnes and Noble. I want to give my thoughts on the book. So I genuinely think this is the best book that I've ever read. And I don't think I'll ever find another book as good as The Old Man and the Sea. And I guess that's kind of a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing because I've read it already. And so, I'll be able to talk with other people who have also read the book. I'll be able to, have conversations about it, and I'll be able to think about it throughout my life now, because it was that good of a book. Like, I don't know if it was life changing, but it definitely, for some reason, the book resonated with me a lot. So yeah, best book I've ever read. I think there's three themes primarily. The first theme being there's something spiritual and comforting about the book. So there's a spiritual theme to the book. Secondly, the book is about persistence, and last, the book is about respect. So I'll go through each one of these. Santiago confides in nature, and this makes the book spiritual and comforting. It's spiritual because Santiago's human spirit, or his soul, is connected to everything around him while he is at sea. We know this because we are constantly reading about his inner dialogue. His inner dialogue is constantly concerned with the birds, his brother, or the marlin, and the sea, the sky, the stars at night while he's out there. He spends how many nights at sea? 2 nights at sea, because he makes it back by the third night to his to the coast. But yeah, I think that's why I like the book so much, and that's why it resonated so much with me, because I too spend a lot of time out in nature. I've been to the UP now probably over 10 times. Maybe not that much, but because it's 6 hours away, but at least 10 times. There's a trail by my apartment. I go hiking at least once or twice a week. Just at a local trail. There's a lake there, and the trail goes along the coast of the lake. But still, I spend a lot of time out in nature, and sometimes I'll go to that trail and I'll meditate alone there. And I too, like Santiago, confide in nature. When you go there, you just when I go to the trail, I'll sit there for 10, 20, 30 minutes, and I'll just take in what's around me. I'll listen to the wind. I'll look at the leaves. And recently, it's been really nice, because I even went hiking in the winter when there was no green outside except for pines. Now that it's spring and getting close to summer, it's really green. So the trail that I go to is it's beautiful right now. It's so green. And so I'm really able to appreciate that and take it in, because I was longing for it for the past 4 months, and now that it's here, I'm really taking it in. And there's something very healing about being in nature. I haven't read much about this concept yet, but I know there's something in Japanese culture called forest bathing, and it's basically just going to a forest, going to the woods, and bathing in the forest, bathing in the sunlight, and really appreciating the trees. And it's something we all do. Some of us maybe talk about it in different ways, but I don't think there's a person that I've met who doesn't get a healing, who doesn't really appreciate nature, right? Maybe some people talk about it more than others. Some people say that they're outdoor people, and others say that they're indoor people. That's fine, but I think at the root of every person's soul, there's no way to get around the fact that there's something incredibly healing about being outside in nature. And so that's why this book was really comforting, because Santiago's out there alone, and he makes nature his companion. I just thought that it was brilliant. I thought, if you're gonna make a book resonate with readers, with as many people as you can, then it's brilliant to write in something so fundamental, right? Man's relationship with nature. And it also reminds me of Carl Jung's quote, nature uses man to know itself. So nature uses us to know itself. And so this entire book reminded me of that quote, because it's a really beautiful idea that we are an extension of nature, a manifestation of nature, right? Humans, that we are sort of like nature's mind, right? Like we are able to appreciate nature in a way that nature isn't able to do without us. So, anyways, I don't want to stay on this theme too long, but yeah. The book is also a story about man's ability to relentlessly pursue a goal. In other words, the book is about perseverance. So the old man, first of all, just never gave up on the fish. He was out there for 3 days and 2 nights. He spent nights alone at sea and learned to comfort himself through it all. He had his doubts and regrets, such as not allowing his apprentice to come with him. But he always remembered why he set out to sea and why he was the man who was able to finish the catch. He never got too high or too low, and this helped him finish the kill. His goal, right, the fish, was literally moving away from him for 3 days, and he never gave up. And so I think some people might say that that's the primary theme of the book, right? Most of the book is Santiago out at sea pursuing this fish. And most of that pursuit is just Santiago getting beat up, bleeding, having to eat raw fish, having to comfort himself, having to not get too low, not get too high, so that he can stay level-headed and finish off the catch. And on the third day, he does. And so undoubtedly, this book is definitely about persistence. His goal, like I said, was literally moving away from him. And he never gave up. Lastly, respect is another major theme throughout the book. So first of all, there's respect between the old man and Manolin, or his apprentice. His apprentice really looks up to him, and that's why he wants to go out to sea with him. And I think Manolin sees something in Santiago that Santiago may not be so sure of anymore since he is an old man. What I mean by that is, like, Santiago has been a fisherman his whole life. And he clearly at some point was a very prolific fisherman. But since it's been 84 days since he's had a catch, but Manolin still respects the old man's skill, respects the old man's knowledge of what it takes to be a fisherman, and he still believes in the old man, even though the old man might not be so sure of his own capacity to be an effective fisherman anymore. I think that's really cool. That shows the respect that Manolin has for Santiago. Santiago respects the marlin. This is another area of the book where we see respect. He admires the strength and persistence of the marlin, and perhaps he sees the marlin in himself. And I think this could tie into the perseverance theme, right? Santiago calls the marlin his brother. He refers to the marlin as his friend, refers to the marlin as his companion many times throughout the book. And I think this could also tie into the persistence theme, because he's admiring the strength and the persistence of the marlin to put up a fight for 3 days while having a hook in its mouth the entire time. On the other hand, you have Santiago above in his skiff, who's bleeding, eating raw tuna, eating raw dolphin, and he's just as determined. So that point, Santiago seeing some of the marlin in himself, I think that plays into both themes, the perseverance and the respect theme. Lastly, there is respect for the old man's catch, even though he only returns with a skeleton. He is humble and respectful in defeat, a great lesson for Manolin to learn as a young, aspiring fisherman. So I think I mentioned this when I talked about what the book is actually about, but yeah, so the sharks ate literally everything on the marlin except the head, and yeah, they only left Santiago with the skeleton. By the time he gets in on the third night, he just leaves his skiff on the shore, and the skeleton is still attached to the skiff, because when he harpooned the marlin, he tied it to the side of his skiff, either the side or the back, I can't remember. But anyways, it's dragging with his skiff the entire time that they're on their way back to Cuba. And so he doesn't take the time to release the skeleton. He just goes back to bed. And everyone the next day, all the fishermen see the giant skeleton that is left behind, and everyone respects him for it. They respect the size of the marlin. So this is just another area of the book where we see the theme of respect come through. So who would like this? I honestly think anyone's going to enjoy reading this book. It's so incredibly gripping from the very first page. Like I said, I was at Barnes & Noble. I was looking for a fiction book. I picked up this book just to see what it was about. I read one page, and then I read 40 pages. And then I bought it, finished it the next day. So I've heard people say that they don't read because they can't finish books. And if that's you, then The Old Man and the Sea is perfect, because it's only 127 pages. It's honestly, you don't have to, you could finish it in a day, but if you don't if you're not a person who likes to sit down for a long time and read for an hour or two, this book is, read it over 12 days, 10 pages a day, and you're done with it. So yeah, I think if you haven't read a book in a long time, then you should start with this book, especially if you're thinking about reading fiction. It's really good. Yeah. That's all I have. So, man, this was such a good book. I don't think I really I didn't do a bad job reviewing it, but this book can't be, you just have to read this book to understand how incredibly gripping and powerful it is. Yeah, it's just so good, especially if you're someone who is outside alone a lot. Like I said, that is one of the biggest themes that came through here for me, is Santiago is constantly confiding in having a conversation with nature, with himself. And then again, when I think about that Carl Jung quote, man uses nature to know itself. I think that's amazing. Nature uses us as its mind to be aware of its beauty, to be aware of nature's beauty. And you really see that theme in this book as well, not only in Carl Jung's work. But all right, that is all I have for The Old Man and the Sea. If you guys do read it, then, or if you have read it, let me know what you think about my summary. If you've read The Old Man and the Sea and you think I'm missing any main themes, or if you like any of the themes that I mentioned that maybe you didn't pick up on, let me know in the comments, because I'd love to start taking these book reviews a little bit farther, really getting a dialogue going between me and the people who have read the books and who also watch or listen to the podcast. I think next I'm going to be reviewing Animal Farm by George Orwell. Either that or Free Will by Sam Harris. One of those. But yeah, I'll be back with another video next week. Thank you. Bye.